How's it going, everyone? My name is DestinyElement. Hope you guys are all doing well, and we are back with another Honkai style video for today, man. So, 2.0 is right around the corner. It's gonna be here next week, and with that, we have a lot of new content, a lot of new missions, and also a lot of new characters. And I wanted to update the tier list on this channel before I actually start doing content for 2.0. And with that, I am a couple updates behind. It's been a while since I've done a tier list video, so we have a lot of new characters to add to this tier list. Now, for anyone that's new to the channel, usually I try to update my tier list every month, and I wanted to make sure that I can put every character in a tier that I think is deserving to them. So I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions, and with that I am going to try to justify my reasoning for why every character is in the tier that they are in. But if you guys don't agree with me, that's perfectly fine as well too. Let me know in the comment section how you guys do feel about the tier list, and if there's anything that you maybe disagree on or that you do agree on, or just anything that you maybe like or dislike about the video. And it's perfectly fine too. I love interacting with you guys in the comment section, so that's basically it. But if you guys do enjoy the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. It really does help me out. And yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so getting into the tier list, before we start adding some new characters in, I do want to move some characters around. I'm going to just give like a small explanation on why, and that's basically it. I don't want to get too in-depth about it unless I really have to. So the first change that I do want to make is Sealy and Kafka. Both of them are phenomenal DPSs, and Sealy is a great DPS. She's very self-sufficient, and her extra turns make her a great character. But she does struggle against content where bosses don't spawn smaller mobs, and if she can't get her resurgence off or her extra turns off, it kind of makes her hard to play sometimes, or to really get the maximum amount of damage or potential out of her. That's probably where she struggles the most in, but she's still overall a great DPS, and I really love her character. Kafka is in the same boat where she is very self-sufficient actually, and she does work really well as a solo dot DPS, and you can even run her in certain hypercarry comps. Like, she is a very good DPS, but she does excel with dot damage, and dot damage is just something that we have to see how well it performs once Black Swan comes out, because her and Kafka will be perfect together. So because of that, she's still really strong, very good AoE, but I'm gonna drop her in S tier because I just don't think her or Sealy are competing in double S tier anymore, if that makes sense. So that's basically where I'm standing on those two. Moving on, there are a couple characters that I do want to change the order in S tier, and a couple characters I want to drop from S tier down to A tier. So I want to move Welt down to A tier. I think Welt is really good. I think his debuffs are definitely effective. I think his slow and his guaranteed imprisonment are really good, and I think vulnerability is also a good debuff that he has, just to buff your team's damage. But I don't think his debuffs are as impactful as other Nihility characters in the game, because he's in this weird spot where his debuffs aren't as prominent or as good as characters like Pela or Silverwolf, but he's also not doing as much damage as certain other Nihility damage characters, such as like Kafka and possibly Black Swan and even Archeron when they drop. So I think with Welt, he is a very good character, but he's not in the same league as the characters in S tier. So that's why I'm gonna have to drop him down to A tier. Next character I do want to move is also Ye Xing. I do want to move Ye Xing down to A tier, because even though he does have the potential to do a lot of damage, I think Ye Xing is he's very high maintenance. So him requiring to use his skill every turn and possibly losing that buff that he has does play a little bit of a part on the team comps that he can be in. So you don't want him to lose his buff, so you're kind of forced to run characters like Gepard or March 7th with him, and even then you can only run Gepard with him, because if you run March 7th shield on Ye Xing, it's going to increase his aggro. And there are just way too many bosses that summon either mobs or advance their action, or that just get way too many turns that can do too much damage. And if he does lose his buff, he just doesn't feel good to play, and he loses out on a lot of damage. So because of that, I'm probably going to put Ye Xing in A tier. Moving on, I don't actually think I have a problem with anyone in double S tier for right now. I would probably move Dan Heng down just a little bit, just for the sake that there's another DPS that kind of, in my opinion, excels in damage and does a better job than him, and he also is more efficient as well too. So I'm gonna put Dan Heng a little bit further down in double S tier, but S tier also looks fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with any of these characters. I would probably move Pela up one, just because she does so much as a debuffer, and she doesn't even feel like a 4-star really. Like her being able to dispel buffs, and she has a huge AoE defense shred. Like she's a very good character. So I would probably move her up one. Now, when it comes to the characters in A and B tier, so Jinglu. For anyone that's seen or watched my other tier list videos, I have a lot of issues with Jinglu, and one of those issues were that he just didn't feel good to play. So without getting too in depth about it, so Jinglu is able to build 10 stacks, obviously, to get Lightning Lord to do a crazy amount of damage, and he is a very good character. He is a good DPS. The problem with him is that, one, he doesn't have any type of effect resistance, so any type of stun, imprisonment, freeze, Kafka's mind control, any type of CC that hinders him from having his turn, Lightning Lord will not go. And then something else that becomes more prominent is that we have characters that commit follow-up attacks, and they generate energy off of their follow-up attacks, such as like Himiko or Kafka or Topaz or Dr. Ratio, and it kind of makes it hard to justify using him when not only does he have a very high energy cost on his ultimate, but he doesn't generate energy with Lightning Lord. And then also, because he doesn't get any type of buffs at 10 stacks, which you work really hard to get, he doesn't advance his own actions, he doesn't get a damage buff. It's kind of just like you get 10 stacks, Lightning Lord hits 10 times, and then you just wait to do it again, because he is a very slow character. And you know, he also is relying on characters like Tingyun and Huopo to really give him the energy that he needs to ult consistently. But the new follow-up set on Jinglu is really good on him, and it does make his damage a lot more acceptable. And I feel like for the amount of work that you do put in on him, it does make him a lot better. So because of that, I will put him in A tier. The damage increase is really nice, and you also have characters that can support him a lot better. So I'm not going to say he's S tier or double S tier, because he is still reliant on other characters to work efficiently, but he is a good character now because of the follow-up set and the support set he has. So that's basically where I stand on him. Now, something else I do want to take into account is pure fiction. So this tier list is going to be based off of overall performance in every bit of content, but pure fiction is definitely something that is new that I do want to think about. And Himiko is kind of in that weird spot where she's good for farming, she does good AoE, but she really didn't excel in anything, you know, like Simulated Universe maybe, but every single character is good in Simulated Universe. Now, in pure fiction, she is a absolute monster. Like, I was doing pure fiction, and like one of the stages, I think it was stage 3 or 4, one of them, but I built my Himiko up, and she made that stage so much easier. Like, it's actually insane. She does so much damage when she's put in a scenario where she can constantly break the enemy's toughness. Now, even though that is very situational, I think her doing well in pure fiction, which is endgame content, makes her a little bit better than other characters that are just good in no content. So I think she performs really well. Plus, she also has supports like Topaz and Dr. Ratio to work with, and you can kind of make a very strong follow-up team with her. So I would probably put her in A tier. You know, I think her usage in pure fiction definitely grants her the ranking of A. So I would probably put her around here. Moving on, another character that I think I'm also going to move up is Herta. So I don't really like Herta. I think her kit is very sloppy and messy, and it doesn't really synergize well. But she works really well with Himiko. But before Pure Fiction came out, her working well with Himiko didn't really matter because there's other characters that can do her job better. But she does really well in Pure Fiction. Like, Herta is honestly kind of a great free-to-play option, you know, if you don't have any other ice damage dealers. And she's really good, you know, and she works really well with Himiko. She works well with Topaz. She works really well in Pure Fiction because the enemies are weak enough to get them to have health or lower pretty easily, and because of that you can get a lot of points. She farms a lot of points for you, so I would probably move her up to B tier. And with that, I think I'm gonna move Arlen down to C tier because I just don't see people use Arlen. Like, Arlen just isn't a good character. I like, you know, I think there are instances where he can do well, but I just don't think he's a good character. Next up is Sampo. So Sampo is a pretty good debuffer in my opinion, but he kind of just works as a support for characters like Kafka. With the new dot damage set that we got, and then also with Pure Fiction, I think he performs pretty well. I think he actually does help out the team quite a bit, and I think he's going to see some more growth as well too with Black Swan. So I can definitely see both of them being ran together. I think with his recent like performances with like the new dot set, Pure Fiction, and then also with Kafka, like looking at how Dot's performing right now, I actually do think he's good enough to be in the same tier as Luca. I think him and Luca are great dot damage characters, but it's like I think for what they are, they can't excel or be any higher than A without Kafka. So it's like for right now, I want to keep them both like bottom of A tier. But yeah, besides that, I kind of like the order of a lot of these characters. I don't really have an issue with most of them. This is perfectly fine for right now. Okay, so now we are going to get into the new characters. So this may take a little bit longer, but I'm going to try to give my reasoning for a lot of it. So we'll do the 4 stars first. First up is Gwenevin. I think Gwenevin is a great fire nihility character. So I think her damage is very respectable. I also think her debuffs that she supplies as well is really good. And even if you just wanted to run her as just like a sub DPS, or if you wanted to run her because you needed a fire DPS on your team, that's perfectly fine. You don't necessarily need to run her with Kafka. And even if you were to run her with characters like Luca and Sampo, she's still a very good damage dealer. But just for that, like, that's all she really is. She's just an all-right dot damage dealer. So I would probably put her in A tier. Next up is Hanya. I think Hanya has really good support potential, and she definitely does help with conserving skill points and, you know, making sure that your team has enough skill points for your like supports and for your damage dealers. And she is really good. I just don't think she's better than characters like Tingyun or Yukong or Pela. And I think for the most part, if I had to choose a support on my team, I would probably choose one of them. Also, skill point efficiency isn't necessarily going to be too much of a problem because we have characters like Sparkle who will be coming out soon. So Hanya, overall, a really good support, really good character, but I would probably put her in A tier. I would probably put her like somewhere like here, or actually like here, like this, or no, like this. Okay. Yeah, I would probably put her like somewhere in the middle of A tier. She's a good character, but I don't think she's good enough to be an S tier or double S tier. Okay, so moving on, we have Shui Yi. I really like her. I was really excited for her character. Her design is sick. Her animations are sick. Now, she's a very weird DPS destruction character. So she scales 1-to-1 with break effect, where every 1% break effect gives her 1 damage buff, like elemental damage, like 1 quantum damage. And she's very good. The problem with Shui Yi is the fact that she kind of has a power spike at Eidolon 2, and she relies a lot of her damage off of break effect. So if you can't break the enemy's toughness, you lose out on a lot of damage. Now, granted, she does have an ultimate that lowers the enemy's toughness regardless of their weakness type, and that's really good, but you're not going to have her ultimate up 24/7. She's very situational. So I feel like for the amount of damage that she does and the amount of investment that you need to make her operate, and also the amount of support that she needs, she is a very, very good DPS once she gets going, but I don't think she is as efficient or as good as some of the other DPSs in S tier. So I would put her somewhere around like A tier. I would probably say like she's like around here. Like her and Yexing are pretty good. Okay, now that covers the 4 stars. Now we are getting into the 5 stars. Now we'll just go in order of release. First up is Jinglu. I don't even know what to say about this character. She is like I was dumbfounded by her kit and her performance, and I really wanted her. I didn't expect to get her or Topaz, but we were fortunate enough to get both of them. Jinglu, in my opinion, is not only a very fun DPS, but I feel like she is the perfect example of a DPS. So you have a character that is able to burst down enemies really quickly. She's a burst DPS. You know, she's going to be dormant and kind of slow in the beginning, but if you're running characters like Brona, or if you just have enough speed on her, you're going to get her 2 stacks. She's going to transform, and when she transforms, she kind of just does everything. You have a character that gets effect resistance, so debuffs and CCs are less effective on her, so you don't have to worry about her getting stunned or slowed or imprisoned or frozen. Like, overall, very strong. She buffs her crit rate by an insane amount, so it makes building crit damage a lot easier on her. You also have a character that gives a lot of damage buffs, and she advances her own action when she transforms, so she gets to go twice in a row. And she stays in her burst DPS form for 2 to 3 turns, depending on if you have her ultimate, and her ultimate hits like insanely hard. Like, she hits like an actual nuke. She's just such a great DPS. Something else that makes her skill point positive actually is whenever she transforms, whenever she uses her skill, it doesn't consume a skill point. So at most, or at the least, she's skill point neutral, and in certain team comps she's skill point positive. Like, she is such a good character. Like, you have a character that can do a crazy amount of damage without consuming skill points when she transforms. She has effect resistance, crit rate, damage buffs, advances her own action. Like, she just does so much damage. And she fits on every team comp. You know, if you're running her with Blade, if you're running a dual carry comp with like Sealy and Ron May, if you're running a hyper carry comp with like Brona, Ron May, and her, if you're doing like Silverwolf, Brona, and her, like, she is such a good character, and she's very flexible to build, you know, because you can get that 5-star destruction light cone from her to shop and super in position 5 it. Like, she is a phenomenal character. And for anyone that doesn't have nice DPS, I would definitely summon for her on her rerun, because she feels good to use, she's fun to use, she does a lot of damage, and she's just very self-sufficient. So I think that's honestly like the best thing about her. And most of the enemies in the game have an ice weakness. Like, I feel like every time I go into Memory of Chaos or Forgotten Halls, and even in Pure Fiction, enemies have an ice weakness, and she does so much damage to enemies' toughness as well too. So overall, just really good character, in my opinion, a perfect DPS. And yeah, that's all I can really say about her. Moving on, we have Topaz. So I really like Topaz's character, like design, kit, nummy, like everything, like the whole 9 yards. She is a phenomenal character. The problem with Topaz, in my opinion, is that she's a really good DPS, but unless you have her ultimate active, it's kind of like alright. She does really good damage without her ultimate, but there is a very big difference when her ultimate is active, and the damage difference between her ultimate being up and her ultimate not being up is quite noticeable. But she also has a lot of good teammates that can support her. Like, she has Himiko. Surprisingly, Kafka works really well with her. Like, I run them together here and there, and like, Kafka granted only has 1 follow-up per turn, but it actually does get Nami to advance to the top pretty quickly. And they both work really well together. You could do Jinglu and Topaz together, but specifically Topaz will work really well with Dr. Ratio. So with Topaz, she does a great amount of damage, and something that I do like about her kit that Jingyu doesn't have is that even if Topaz is stunned or frozen or imprisoned, Nami still performs, and I really do like that. So you have a character that does a lot of damage, Nami still performs, Nami advances his own action, she does a crazy amount of single target damage. Overall, I really do like her character, but I don't think she belongs in double S tier. I would probably say she's gonna be somewhere around S tier, like somewhere around here. I do like her character though. She is a very strong hunt character. Plus, we also need some more fire DPSs in the game, so Topaz is a great pick in my opinion. Moving on, we have Huohuo. So Huohuo actually took me off guard. Like, I was actually off guard by her performance. So she's very, very strong. I think she's definitely double S tier. I would probably even put her maybe above Luocha. It really depends. I'll probably put her somewhere like here. So you have a character that has, in my opinion, the strongest blast heal in the game. She can dispel debuffs off of her skill. Her also giving a huge attack buff is really good too, because this can help characters like Black Swan and Kafka, whose dots scale off of attack, or it can just be a good damage buff for characters like Sealy or Jinglu or Topaz or Blade. Like, overall, Very strong, and she gives a huge amount of energy regen, and this is exactly what characters like Argy and Jinglu need when you have such high energy cost ultimates. So she's kind of like a pseudo harmony character, but overall I really like her kit. And you know, if you are someone that doesn't have a 5-star healer, or if you are someone that doesn't enjoy using Bailu, I would say Huoho is a great pick. She is a absolutely amazing pick to have on your team. And if you don't know who to decide, whether it's her or Luocha that you want to summon for, honestly, you can't really go wrong with either pick, but Huoho, I do like her playstyle a little bit more, so I would probably prefer her. Okay, so moving on, we also have Argy. So Argy is kind of vanilla, in my opinion, you know, like he just kind of gets a bunch of stacks, builds up his crit rate, crit damage pretty easily. You know, he has a strong AoE with his skill, and then you have another big strong AoE with his ultimate, and then if you save up enough energy, or if you have like Tingyun or Huopo on your team, you can get that 180 energy cost. He hits really hard, and he's definitely a very consistent character, and he does really well in pure fiction as well too. But I feel like we kind of just have to see how well he performs in 2.0 when pure fiction gets reset and Memory of Chaos gets reset. I think he's consistent with his damage, and he is very easy to use, and he also is very flexible as well too, and you can put him on definitely a lot of different team comps. But hyper carry would probably be his best friend, so like Brona, Ranmei. If they don't have a physical weakness, Silverwolf could be really good. Pela could also be really good for the AoE defense shred that she applies, so that Argy hits more overall. But I would say Argy's like probably here. I would probably say like him and Blade are somewhat close. You know, I don't think he's broken, but I do think he is a really good character for what he is as a physical DPS, because we don't really have many of those. So I really like his character, but I'll put him around here. And then the girl of the hour. So Ranmei. I don't even know where to begin with this character. Like, I was ready to say that she is better than Brona. Brona kind of loses her position as best harmony character with her in the game, but they kind of both work and do two separate jobs. So Brona excels really well in hyper carry comps, where she can advance one DPS's action, give them a huge buff, and then they just kind of nuke after her skill. And she also, Brona is able to dispel debuffs, gives attack, crit damage, she buffs damage as long as she's on the field, defense, with her traces. Like, Brona is a very good carry, or a very good hyper carry support. Ranmei is more like a very good dual carry support, but even though they work separately, like even though you would probably run Brona in a hyper carry comp and Ranmei in a dual carry comp, you can still run both of them together in one team. Like, you can still have one DPS and have both of these characters support that one DPS. So they kind of like elevate each other, but they also work separately. Like, she just has way too many things going on in her kit. Like, she buffs speed, she buffs weakness break efficiency, she buffs break effect, she buffs overall damage, she buffs, like, it's just so much. Like, she gives Kafka a little bit extra speed to perform, she gives dot characters weakness break efficiency and break effect so that their dot damage can so you can get the break dot more often. And she also like buffs other characters as well too. And like, it's not even just dot characters. Like, she makes Sealy better, Topaz better, Kafka better, Argy better, Jinglu better, Don Hung. Like, she makes every single DPS character better in the game, and you're not restricted to running just her. You can run her and Brona, but if you are running just her, you can run multiple DPSs. Like, you can do Jinglu and Sealy, you can do Kafka and Topaz. Like, as if there's multiple DPS characters that you like, Ranmei can support both of them, and her supports last for a long time. You know, like, her being able to support with her skill, and that skill lasts for 3 turns. Her ultimate preventing enemies from recovering after their weakness is broken is so huge. Like, it's such a good, it's just such a good buff. It's like, I would say for hyper carry comps, Brona is a lot better. And then for dual carry comps, Ranmei is better, but you can still run both of them together to support one DPS if you want to. It's just Ranmei gives a lot of flexibility, and she's very easy to build as well too. So because of that, like, double S tier, like, she's such a great character. Like I really love her character. She's so much fun to use, and like her damage that she gives your team is insane. So yeah, I'm gonna put her in double S tier. Moving on, our final character that we are adding to the tier list is Dr. Ratio. So I'm in a weird spot with Dr. Ratio. He is the first free 5-star limited character that we've gotten. And I'm actually really surprised that they gave him out for free. So I love his character. I love his design. The story event with him was hilarious. I thought he was a great character. So how I look at Dr. Ratio is he is very flexible. So you can run him in a multitude of team comps, but he works specifically really well with Topaz and other follow-up characters. Him and Topaz are honestly the best partners for each other, because you would have Topaz go, then Nami would go, then Dr. Ratio will launch a follow-up attack, and then Dr. Ratio's turn will go, and then you can like pop ultimate, and then Dr. Ratio can like go again. So they work really well together. And Dr. Ratio not only has team flexibility going for him, but he also has a very self-sufficient kit. You know, he's able to give himself a crit rate, crit damage buff. So because of that, it makes him really easy to stack that crit rate, crit damage ratio. So you can get that 1-to-2 ratio pretty easily. He does a lot of damage, good AoE off of his ultimate, and his follow-up attack conditions are also really, really nice. And he's just such a strong character, man. Like he's a really, really strong character. I want to put him in double S tier, but I don't know. I think okay, if you're running Dr. Ratio at Topaz, he's definitely double S tier. But him by himself as a unit, I would probably put him like top of S tier. I think these like Sealy, Dr. Ratio, Kafka, and Topaz are all phenomenal DPSs. Like they work so well. But there's something about each and every single one of their kits that make them reliant on something. Like, you know, Topaz is reliant on other characters having follow-ups. Kafka is reliant on other dot damages as well too, supporting her to get her maximum like potential. Dr. Ratio is very self-sufficient, and he is really good, but Topaz is his best partner, and Sealy is kind of reliant on having mobs that she can kill to get her extra turn and her resurgence. So these characters are amazing, and they're very close to double S tier, but they're just not there yet. Where compared to Jinglu, like she isn't relying on anyone. You know, as long as she gets her turn, which she will, because she'll just get it, and she'll transform, and she has effect resistance, so debuffs won't work on. It's like CC won't work on her. Like she buffs herself, she advances her own action, she nukes and hits like a truck, and she'll have like 2 to 3 turns of huge DPS. Just going over and over again. And it's like all these characters in double S tier, they just excel so much in what they do. Like I don't honestly see any character below double S tier replacing these characters anytime soon. You know, like Huohuo and Locha just have so much in their kit to offer. Sustain wise, Dan Heng is showing a little bit of age, mostly because Jinglu does comparable damage to him, and she's very easy to use, and she doesn't consume as many skill points. But when Sparkle comes out, Dan Heng will be a lot better, so I'll probably bump him up towards the top of double S tier again. Brona and Ranmei are still like phenomenal supports. Silverwolf, I know a lot of people may disagree, or a lot of people may actually think Pela is better than Silverwolf, but the thing with Silverwolf is I feel like her debuffs are more impactful, and her weakness implant is such an insane skill, because it doesn't matter what team comp you run, it does not matter what you do, you can stiff arm every single bit of content in the game with Silverwolf, you know. And that's what makes Mono Quantum so good when Sparkle comes out, is because you can run Mono Quantum, and it does not matter if the enemy team does not have a quantum weakness, because Silverwolf would implant it. You would have all type resistance shred, quantum resistance shred, Sealy with pen. You would also have Sparkle, who gives a 45% attack increase on mono quantum, and you know, Silverwolf just has a lot of debuffs, so I don't really see her going anywhere. And then you have Jinglu and Fushuan, who they just do everything. You know, Fushuan, she buffs damage, she buffs crit rate, buffs max HP, mitigates damage, heals her team. Like she just does too much. And like if you have Fushuan with her Lycone, like I have her with her Lycone, she is she is like a force to be reckoned with, man. Like, she is such a good character. Like, she is actually like the perfect tank in my opinion. So yeah, that would probably cover everything. As for the tier list, I'm pretty happy with this tier list. I don't think there's any character that's like utter garbage in D tier. I think there are characters that perform worse than others, but every character is usable in their own right. So as for tier list going, I am pretty happy with the tier list. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't necessarily have an issue with the order of a lot of these characters, but if there's anything that you guys want to share, any thoughts or opinions that you guys have, please let me know in the comment section. I love interacting with you guys. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for joining me while I make this tier list, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.